Igor, the stage is yours.
Buongiorno, good morning, and welcome to this social psychology research methodology. This workshop is our first workshop in every of the meeting of the project Insects Innovation in Gastronomy. We have one workshop. So why this title? The title is related to our work package. So it's related to the research we've done. We didn't complete this research. We have the first part, but we have 370 participants to our research. I mean, it's a very good result in terms of number. 370 consumers told their opinion about eating insects. So I'm very curious, especially of the second part of this presentation, when I will show you the data which are now unpublished. So this is the first presentation about this. So the first part will be done by me, and the conclusions will be done by Jasna Karacic, PhD in medicine. And we will see together these things. Of course, there is a first part which is more frontal, and then there is the research, which is essentially a discussion. I will show you the data, and I'm curious about your point of view, how you see this data. I mean, data are numbers, but we can still interpret what happened. So essentially, we are an organization dealing with European projects, and our projects deals with mainly environmental sustainability. I will show you some examples to see what we do. We act especially in the sectors of our territory. So we live in the province of Foggia. So essentially, we have tourism and agriculture and food as main sectors. So some of our projects are related to leadership, but leadership for promoting sustainability. We act both in Europe and Asia. These are examples of activities we do. And projects about social inclusion, so dealing with the disadvantaged groups, projects related to people dealing with the action in penitentiaries, so both inmates but also policemen. And so we deal with the topics related to psychology, not only on the point of view of clinical psychology or forensic psychology or security psychology, but especially on work and organizational psychology. So this is one of our most recent projects, a small scale, about psychological strategies for effective re-education of prisoners. So these are just examples. Another project I really like is this one, because it's called Music Therapy for the Ukrainian Refugees. So we have both competencies. We have people from Ukraine living in first person, the crisis, the war. We have participants which are musicians, so from music universities, and we have psychologists. So this is a project that will close with a concert. Projects about disability, and of course, our main area is the work and organizational psychology. I do this frame before to start because what I will show you in the research of the insect innovation is only the psychological point of view. This is something that maybe didn't pass a lot when we administered the test, because people see the items, items related to insect consumption, and they've seen also the personal side. But essentially what we will discuss is the behavioral and attitude change towards sustainable food, which is a bigger topic. Insects is something very specific. Probably we won because we did something very specific. But in reality, the issue of sustainability, it's a broader issue. I will show you also other research about other types of food that people reject and how people try to solve it to encourage sustainable behavior. And also I will tell you what is the perception of European participants concerning the sustainability of insects, because this data surprised me. I will tell you, I show you what happened. So, okay, these are our three areas. I mean, sustainability, social inclusion, work and organizational psychology. I will start my presentation with a story that made famous our province. You know that in the 19th century, many people from the southern Italy immigrated in the US, essentially, to have a safe and more rich place. This was very common in the southern Italy. And so it happened also in my province, which is the province of Foggia. And it's a province in the southern Italy with lots of rural areas. It's one of the most extended. And Foggia, in a curious way, became quite famous in the history of medicine and food. Many Italians moved to the US in the 19th century in order to have a new space, and it was very common for southern Italy little village to move entire community to the US. This is a little still existing place in our province called Roseto Valfortore. It's 1,000 people now. And when they moved to the US, immigrated to the US, they created a parallel community called Roseto, Pennsylvania. Not very original, same name, but it became famous for a reason. It was the 50s of the 20th century, and the professor Stuart Wolf, which was a professor in medicine in the Oklahoma University, found an unexpected statistic. He found that essentially in this Roseto, Pennsylvania, there was a much lower cardiovascular disease death rate if compared to the US. So it was completely out. Imagine a situation in which you have national statistics, you have a broad territory like the one of the US, you find Roseto, Pennsylvania, you have a much lower death rate. We are talking about the 50s of the last century. So medicine was different, food was different, everything was different. These were the data found. Cardiovascular disease was the main death rate, death cause at that time. So in that village, which was a moved community from the southern Italy to the US, the cardiovascular disease death rate in people over 65 years was minus 50% than the US average. Minus 50 is an enormous data if we are measuring death rate. And there was no cardiovascular disease under 64 years. This was very strange. So imagine Professor Stuart Wolf finding this data and having the question mark, why it happened? How this is possible? What can be the cause, in your opinion, that led to a decreased death rate only in a little community moving from one place to another? I show you the first hypothesis. So what could be the possible difference? I mean, it's too much. Maybe they had different diets. Maybe. The diet of the US of that time was not so good. It was like meatballs, lard, a lot of fats. And so the first thing that the Professor Stuart Wolf found or imagined is that probably from southern Italy, these people brought the Mediterranean diet that we know that is very healthy, right? He made a statistic to check this. And do you know what he found? He found that Italians became American and started to eat like Americans, pad, sausage. And it passed a lot of time. They moved in the US in the 1880, I mean, so 200 years ago. This measurement was in 1950s, so it passed 60 years. In that 60 years, they forgot the Mediterranean diet. They started to eat like in the US. So second hypothesis, probably this southern Italian moved the professions from the South Italy to the US. The average profession in the US at that time was working in the mining, working without any job safety issue, without a reasonable contract, without any possible positive working conditions. So Stuart Wolf thought, maybe the southern Italian are working in agriculture, working like shepherds, you know, fresh air, physical activity, physical and psychological well-being, but no. In reality, Italians had the same behavior of the US, same working condition. Third possible hypothesis, maybe they drink less wine. They drink less alcohol. Maybe this is the only possible option to say, okay, you don't drink alcohol, you're healthier. I was not optimistic when I seen this third hypothesis. In fact, of course, wine was on the same level, no difference. So the change of perspective of this research is not only explaining that community, it's explaining a change of mind, because essentially the idea of Stuart Wolf was to go out from the classical medical variables, which are the most important, okay, don't misunderstand me, and see if some social and psychological factors could have led to an impact on health. So essentially, Stuart Wolf was the first to say, okay, if it's not something medical, it should be something social or psychological, if it's not medical. And he found that the main difference was the social cohesion at the table. This was the difference. So they had a more cohesive society. Families was completely united and there was a social support. Now it's obvious. We know that social support prevents stress. We know that if we prevent stress on big numbers, we have also an impact on the health. But at that time was crazy. So this is a study of anthropology of communities. And this is to explain that food is not only nutrition. Food is nutrition and many other things. And so when we introduce a novel food, in this case, insect or another novel food, we have to consider also attitudes and behaviors about food. So our approach is, as psychologists, is mostly on people reaction, but society is as well important. Europe is very active in the strategies for the promotion of sustainable and healthy food. We cannot say it's not active. Europe is very active. There are lots of things, but I will show you also some data which are somehow a reason of concern on my side. We have lots of measures, lots of plans. This is a plan, for example, to fight childhood obesity. And it's 2023. But if we go back on time, 2007, 2013, we had many other plans about obesity reduction, right? But if we see data, even if we have all these plans, all these action, all this education in order to reduce the obesity, increase the healthy habits, these are the data. This is sustainable development in the European Union, 2023. In the 5 years between 14 and 19, we had an increased rate of obesity. So sometimes we do lots of things, but the data shows that the effect is negative. We have many of these. European Green Deal, the strategy from farm to fork, it's also a psychological strategy. We have, for example, an entire section dedicated on how to encourage sustainable food consumption. Do you know in the last Eurobarometer, how much was the percentage of people that considered very important ethics and sustainability in food, so selected food according to sustainability on the European level? 14%. 1/4. People select food based on cost, taste, and not many other things. Even food safety is the fifth factor, imagine. So there are lots of things to do here. And it's not easy, and we are talking about this in this project. So we have to know the subject and the difficulties. Then, of course, also this European Green Deal, which is a very good plan to encourage sustainability in Europe to reach the carbon neutrality in the 2050, is under a protest by farmers in the EU. I'm sure that this is not only at the European level, but it's also at the national level. We had also in Italy farmers going to protest, and they've been in front of the European Commission as well. So the topic is under discussion in Europe, but there are lots of things, even in order to inform the consumers. Here we have the new Consumers Agenda 2020-2025, which aims to change the consumer codes in Europe in order to promote sustainability. Because on paper, we have all ways to measure sustainability of food, but in practice, we have lots of problems. I show you the main in accordance to the European Commission. Now, in Europe, we have the EU Green Claims Reform. So it's a reform about advertising concerning sustainability. We all see when we buy things recently in the last year, at least in Italy, in the last 2-3 years, new advertising and new labels to determine if a food is sustainable. This is green, this is sustainable, the logos with the leaves, and all these nice words. Do you know that there is not any univocal regulation about this? These are the European data. The 53% of the green claims, so advertising in which the product is proposed as sustainable, are misleading, 1 out of 2, misleading, unfounded, or not clear. 40% of claims have no supporting evidence. People say this is green, but mostly half there is no evidence, zero evidence. Around half of the green labels, because we have green labels, so labels to say this food is green, have no checks, no verification. There is no institute to check if what you say is true. It's obvious that within an advertising you have to tell the truth, but nobody can check. There is no officiality on this. And there are around 230 green labels, all different. Imagine how chaotic it is to determine today if a consumer wants to know this is sustainable, and this is not sustainable. I will show you in the data that this have an impact on what citizens think. So there are lots of things very good. The plans, we have it, but there are many other things to do. And to operate on the attitude change is not easy. So if the consumers are not informed enough, their decision will be the consequence. And at the same time, also consumers having information have a weak decision making. This is how we decide. The only Nobel Prize won by a psychologist demonstrates that essentially our decision making is based on emotions, on biases, on distortions, on the cognitive shortcuts. And so this is Daniel Kahneman, who is the unique psychologist having had the Nobel Prize. And he demonstrated many times the cognitive fallacies in decision making and all types of decision making, including food. The one about food is special because through food we communicate our identity, our values, our nutritional factors, our health. So it's not like what we want to eat today, but it's a very important topic. Essentially, we don't have the capacity to put all the attention and calculation and meaning to what we want, even when informed. When non-informed, imagine. Plus, I'm not very optimistic about the future. This is always our Eurostat statistics showing that around 1 out of 5 Europeans of 15 years old have not enough competence, basic competence in reading, not enough competence in mathematics, and not enough competence in science. How can you read a food label without these three things? And what to understand? That's my personal concern on the new generation. And so here we have the ethical dilemma. Should we communicate like this? What's inside food? You have to have a master degree in chemistry to understand what's inside, but there is everything. Or we should go towards this direction, which is the Nutri-Score. Do you know Nutri-Score? In Italy, we don't have it. Yes. In Italy, we don't have it. Cyprus, Spain, I don't know.
The only point is
Yes, but imagine the producer of prosciutto, imagine the producer of Parmigiano, they are all in. And so there are big discussions about the Nutri-Score, but one ethical dilemma is the following. Should we simplify at the maximum level our communication about food in order to make it, let's say, understandable for all? Or we should go complicated and, I don't know, read this and try to understand what's inside? Enriched macaroni, I have no idea what it can be. Enriched of what? I mean, macaroni ingredient, I mean, should be one ingredient, but okay. Anyhow, sure. I don't know. I will show you some data about Nutri-Score because there are lots of research. In Italy, I don't know if it will be applied because we have lots of products which are categorized in prosciutto, Parmigiano, olive oil. I was not aware, and imagine that somebody told me that even the Coca-Cola Zero is better than it. It's better than try with the Coca-Cola Zero to do the salad and tell me what happens. I mean. Okay, I stopped myself here, but this is the introduction about the European policies. It's very important, but there are lots of food dilemmas. I will show you that the research about psychology of food is quite big. The most recent is the research about neuroscience, and there is also the neuroscience of eating insects. So there are some areas connected to the showing the insect as food, and this the insula. So it's demonstrated that showing the entire insect in a plate as food activates this area, which is the area connected with disgust, negative emotion, arousal, pain. There's no way. I will show you the data then. So the opinion of our research, but in time there is no way essentially. But there are lots of research showing, for example, that there are areas connected to the reward system. So neuroscience studied a lot the reward system because reward system activates when whatever positive activity and whatever activity of pleasure is related to that one, including addictions. The addiction area is the same area activated when we see a food that we like, same area. So there are lots of studies about insects. I will show you the most recent research. There are also research done in Italy. And what's nice is that our research is compliant with the past research about insect consumption, but also gives something new, in my opinion. So it's not a repetition of the past research. Anyhow, there are lots of studies, even based on neuroscience, for showing how people see food and how you can move people to a sustainable shift towards food consumption. Some studies, for example, compared the word association with different types of food, comparing food with fat, sugar, and carbs with food with less fat, sugar, and carbs, and found that the word association with fat food by the average of the participants was related by simulation of eating. So the word association was related to pork, dish, restaurant. If you use a less palatable food like apple, rice, without carbs, with less food, fat and sugar, the mental association of people was not related to agriculture, not food related, not non-eating words. And there are tons of these. So there are areas of the brain that can predict food preferences. There are studies demonstrated that our capacity to taste things is completely mediated by non-food aspects. There is a study about general consumers and sommeliers, or experts of tasting the wine, about the price. If you are a sommelier, so you are a kind of machine of tasting the wine, you are very accurate, you should be not influenced by anything. You should try the wine without a bottle, taste, drink, and tell me the opinion and rate, right? There is one study that demonstrated that if you say a specific price to an expert connected to that wine, you change the taste, you change everything. In this study, there was the same bottle of wine, same label, same everything, and there was two experimental conditions, and there was wine sommelier testing and evaluating the wine. To one part of the sample, the price declared of that wine was 10 euro. In the other was 100 euro, and was the same. You should imagine the evaluation should be the same. In reality, overpricing 100 euros moved the opinion even of experts. What tells us this story? That imagine what happens with consumers. Imagine. Now, are not these studies, I know, are not very optimistic, but this science can be used also to encourage ethical and sustainable consumption. So there are lots of studies demonstrating, for example, that overweight and obese participants react differently towards fat food and sugar food. And also there are lots of research about the impact of logos, so how much logos can move the opinion. And this works. There is even one about the European organic food label. One thing which is common to many research is the following. Sustainability labels move the attitudes of people having already values of sustainability. If you don't believe to sustainability, the impact of this is zero. And it's not measured only by questionnaires, it's even measured by neuroscience. So I will show you now our data. Here we have the social psychology research. I put a neutral cover, but you can put whatever you want because we had we have to decide the cover of this research. But maybe we can see first the data, discuss a little bit of data, and then see the graphics. Very good. 370 participants attended to our research. Lots of people. All countries had more than 25 participants, which was the minimum. Of course, we cannot ignore that there are some differences. So, of course, I imagine a little bit of more statistical power in that sample that have more participants. Spain, 73, Italy, 120, because we acted with two organizations. Anyhow, we have everything. And, of course, we cannot say this is a representation of the country. This is a sample. So I don't know how much this data represent the opinion of the Europeans, but we know that correlations and other types of measurement are good to be used. Intentions and propensity to eat insects. Now, when I sent the question, I thought, probably they will return back by insulting me or telling that we are promoting insects and blah, blah. And expected nobody would eat insects, right? The 41.08% of the population would eat insect under the form of flowers for burgers, pasta, and snacks. And we had Italy inside, pasta with insect, 40%. It's a lot. Second, I will show you later that there is a disbalance between male and female in eating insects. Which one, in your opinion, is more prone to eat insect, male or female? There is a significant difference, not only in this research. Male, yes. Female will eat less, not only in this research, I mean, in many other research. So 40% is a lot. 40% is 1 out of 2. 35% is would eat insect as a protein supplement. This was the question by Gris. So if you picked a point that was sensitive, protein supplements for diet and fitness, 35%, 1 out of 3. It's a lot, in my opinion. Do you expect it more, less? I didn't expect it 40% under some points. 1 out of 3 will take an educational course. 1 out of 3 will pair with cheese and wine. 1 out of 3 will eat fried insects. And 1 out of 5 pairing with desserts. Now, these are questionnaires. Nobody went there with the burger panini to test the real behavior. But still, it's a 40%. It's more than what I expected. Then we have the technical knowledge about insects' nutritional properties. This questionnaire was done together with Dr. Fenga because Dr. Fenga is a technologist, and so we have to check everything. I mean, all correct information on nutritional properties that I don't know. And in this case, we have to consider that most of the people have no idea on nutritional facts in general, imagine of insects. Okay. So considering that, we have 16, 18 questions, if I remember correct, and we have yes, no answers. The random rate is 50%, which means that if you go random, you should take the 50%. So that variable that was correct answer in more than the 50%, imagine the first was considered correct by the 70% of the population, are things that people normally knows, and many other things that people do not imagine. Okay, because we had only 2 alternatives. Statement about nutritional facts of food, yes, no. So if you don't know, you go random, you have the 50% rate of taking the correct one. So for example, many people know that insects protein are high quality proteins. This was a reverse item, 70% of people considered correctly. Insects consumption interfere negatively with digestion. This was a reverse item. And no, there is no interference with digestion. So many people given the correct answer. Only the 60%, so very near to chance rate, consider that insects should be listed as allergens, which is correct, and also the European Food Safety Authority was very clear in this. Nobody, mostly nobody, imagined that ants have a buttery and sweet flavor. But only 1 out of 5 given the correct answer. Or for example, few people know things about textures, and what happens if you cook food, cook insects, what change in the texture, and many other technical things. There are differences in the countries. There are some countries that seems a little bit more informed, in countries which seems less informed. One scale that didn't give us many data is the following. Self-rated capacity to cook insects. Nobody have idea, no idea on how to do it. Only the 15% of the population thought, I can fry insects. Not frying, baby. It's 15 is not a lot. Probably they imagined something different, but 15% was the maximum. So it's the easiest. Nobody have an idea on how to cook insects. Now, of course, if you don't have the procedure, if you don't have any idea on how to use it, you will not do it. Then we have one of my favorite scales, which is the following: prejudice and cognitive biases against insects, which are sentences about insects, but essentially distortions. I show you some examples. The European Commission introduced insects consumption very recently. In reality, it was 1997, the law about novel food. 1997, I had 8-year-old. I was in the primary school when there was insect in Europe. The European Commission introduced insect as cheap food in order to make it accessible for all. At the moment, it's not cheap. At the moment, it's not cheap. I will surely don't like insects even if I never try. You cannot say never try, essentially. So it's a bias. And also many other sentences. For example, the European Commission wants to hide insects in our ordinary food. I mean, it's regulated in order to be clear. And also consumption of insects is an extreme option, just only supported for political reasons. 40% of the population agreed with this sentence. Lots of cognitive biases about food. To eat insects is dangerous for health. The health authority in Europe told, no, it's not dangerous, but it's an allergen. It has many other allergens freely in Europe, in the European market. And then a very important one, because the point is the following. Nobody wants to eat insects or other types of sustainable food. How much people recognize that insects are more sustainable than meat? Not so many. Only a half of the population consider that insects are more environmentally sustainable protein supply compared to the traditional meat. 1 out of 2 consider that traditional meat is equally sustainable. Only a half consider that insects can contribute to global food security. And 1 out of 3 tells to be familiar with the environmental benefits of the insect farming if compared to the traditional livestock agriculture. So essentially, we have half-half. See, for example, here, I believe insects can contribute to global food security. 1 out of 2. Many other things don't think that there is any food safety contribution. So let's go with the data about our countries. We have a first measurement, which is a reliability measurement. This passage is done in order to validate the scale under a psychological point of view. This index is called Cronbach's alpha. The Cronbach's alpha is something you have to measure on a set of items in order to tell that item measure one thing. If you do a questionnaire and you say, I want to measure rejection toward insects, you will do a set of items measuring rejection toward insects, but statistically, you should have to find an intercorrelation between the items. If the items measure the same thing, there should be an internal correlation, statistical. This is measured by the Cronbach's alpha. You see the numbers, 0.89, 0.88, plus 0.80. This is satisfactory in research. The minimum very often considered is 0.7. So this is good for publication. It's all positive. We found gender differences. So as we imagined, the intention and propensity to eat insects is higher in males. Technical knowledge about food is also higher in male. Self-reported cooking capacity of insects is mostly 0, but higher in male. And cognitive biases are higher in female. These things go together. I will show the internal correlation. And there are some things we can observe that can reduce the rejection toward insects and similar. For example, we had a control question at the end of the questionnaire. Did you ever try insects or not? Did you ever try or not? First of all, around 70 people out of 370 already tried insects. So it's a good proportion. And people who already eaten insects had higher intention and propensity to eat again. So nobody increased the rejection. Had higher technical knowledge, higher self-reported cooking capacity, much reduced prejudice and cognitive biases, and higher recognized role of eating insects, 3.97. All significant correlation. This is all significant, something we can publish. And also those 18 people that cooked insect in the past also have the same effect. So This is something very obvious, but shows that familiarizing with the target food you don't want to like or the sustainable food increase the information, increase the familiarity, reduce the cognitive bias, reduce the prejudice. So this is applicable to any other type of food. Now, the data about the countries, transnational research. These are the differences between countries. There are patterns, countries in which variables and the intention to eat insects and information are higher and lower. Of course, we cannot generalize because of the nature of the sample, because of the numerosity of the sample. Intentions and propensity to eat insects, first Cyprus, and then there is Italy, and after Greece, Spain, Romania, and Turkey have the lowest intention and propensity to eat insects. This is 0. This is the average. So mostly all 0, mostly all 1 here. Okay, so they are significantly different. These variations are not random.
Because we have some concrete restrictions because of the related approach to the insects, because most of the species are mostly forbidden to eat.
So we have to write it. We have to write it and to make it clear. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm just reading data. I mean, yes, this factor should be put in the reports. My idea was to, I have already the reports. My idea is to complete it with the comments from the countries. Technical knowledge of insect properties. This is not a measurement of knowledge. Remember that we have 2 options, so 1 correct, 1 false. So essentially, how to read this graph? We have here the 8. 8 out of 16. 8 is checked, random. So what's surprising is that there are a couple of countries that know something about insects, because the average of Italy and Spain is significantly higher than the random rate. See, 9, 10, 9 to 10, Italy and Spain had probably received some information or campaign recently about insects, so maybe we know that there are proteins and other nutritional aspects. But what's surprising is that we have also countries going lower than the chance rate. So if you go random, you get a better information about this. What's the indicator? The indicator is that probably in that country there is some misinformation against insects, because it's lower than the chance rate. Prejudice and cognitive bias, of course, these are all related. So if you don't have information about insects, of course, you will have misinformation and prejudice. And you see that the tendency is similar. We have Italy, Spain, Cyprus, Greece on one side. Greece in reality is quite significant as a prejudice. Greece, Romania, and Turkey, high prejudice and cognitive biases, including all the items concerning Europe wants to hide insects in our ordinary food, wants to give us a cheap food and blah, blah.
In the news about one of the staff of the forest, you know, that the people in Spain say that this is something that related to insects in the food.
Which one?
It's like a false news.
Yeah.
Spain about it's a stamp with a proof that this is like environmental concerns, sustainability, but in Spain the people say that this is because use insects in this.
Yeah. What was a kind of misinformation in Italy was that a set of supermarkets exposed the label, "We will never put insects in our food." Which, okay, could be also correct and a decision of that supermarket. But what is the implicit factor? If you write this in one chain of supermarkets, then probably the other will put this, but nobody expressed. This is implicit communication. And lots of people
told before about the misinformation about the seals, about each one of the seals regarding this. About the, for example, in Spain, I put it in the desk research about Continental, about color food, selling this. And this news about this, what they're telling this is important.
Yeah, there are lots of implicit aspects in the food labels. Also, when you write big, no sugar, okay, no sugar, but what's instead of sugar? You have to see what's instead of sugar, because some are better, some are not very good, some are. There have been also many other things about the substitution of sugar with other elements. Anyhow, it's quite significant, this scale. And what's nice, this particular scale have no other types of scale in research. I didn't find something like prejudice and cognitive biases like this case. So that's an innovation part of our research. Recognition of the environmental role of insects. So how much do you consider that insects can contribute to the environmental sustainability? Not a lot. Cyprus a lot, but Cyprus also have a very qualified sample, high level of education. So it's also 25%. Anyhow, you can see that people, Italy, Spain, and Greece, for example, are around the middle point. So there is no disbalance toward the environmental sustainability. Romania do not consider 60 participants, not consider any contribution of environmental sustainability. I don't know the informational campaign in Romania, no idea, but it seems like zero. And Turkey as well. So thank you for your attention. I leave the floor to Jasna for the second part, and then we can discuss the practice of research.
So I'm very happy to be here, and yeah, it's amazing place, amazing friends, amazing Greece, like always. So I'm coming from Brussels, Belgium. There, of course, it's now it's winter time, so I wasn't prepared practically for this hot temperature. Even I'm originally from the Split, Croatia, what is and I have some Greek genes, so I'm here like a home, so I like it. In the Brussels, the situation is all EU regulation, the papers, documents, so if it's not in the documents, there doesn't exist, but this is not true. We saw a really interesting presentation from the Igor, and what I can say that in diplomacy, we have this, there is also agency for the food safety. And what we can say that most of this the people are really scared about new things and about implementation in the everyday practice. I also need to say from my expectation that I'm also impressed by the results, what we get from the participants, because I expect some different way that people be, even those who already tried the insects, because it's something new. So the culinary innovation and insects and the health diplomacy are not, they're very, very common in the way how relations between the countries and the differences, what we saw from research, are connected. The role of novel food in addressing global health and nutritional challenges. We also saw how difficult it is sometimes to read all the, my friends told me recently that popular chocolate Kinder Bueno is full of insecticide, what I didn't know, but I eat it, so I like it even. But somebody told me before, you will eat insecticide of this chocolate, maybe, I'm not sure that I will try. So, and of course, culinary practices with the EU regulatory standards are also important. In this presentation, this is like intersection of insects-based culinary innovation with health diplomacy and the regulatory frameworks of the European Union. It highlights how these elements can contribute to global food security, nutritional challenges, and the environmental sustainability, because this is very important if we're talking about European policy. Of course, there is some benefits, like insect-based foods offer a high protein, low fat, and alternative to traditional stocks, rich in the essential amino acids, vitamins, minerals, so everything what is really good for the body actually. Production has a minimal environment footprint, what is also something what we want today, like Igor said about green. And this is also today very popular. Let's say, not only with the car industry, what we are mostly talking only about this. So the food system that are both nutritious and eco-friendly. So sometimes it's really it's not easy to see this balance, eco-friendly and nutritional good. And so, highlighting the nutritional advantages of insect-based food. It's really like farming and the traditional livestock. Sometimes really difficult to see really what we want from this part. And contribution to food security. For me, for example, security is most important thing, but maybe not for all. But for me personally, it's important to see, is it safe or it's not safe, and what I can expect after eating this. It's not like eat tiropita, spanakopita. It's something different. For the global, as I said, the global food security is something what Brussels wants from the top. And of course, health diplomacy plays a critical role integrating these insect-based diets into global food strategies in the international cooperation and policy-making process. That is why this is important to see the differences between the countries and to see the perceptions. How is the situation in real life? So what we want today or what we want tomorrow, this is really important to see. And of course, these international food policies, because if Brussels says that something is like this, each country in the European Union should implement all this policy, all these strategies, and everything what is so far already on the table. About this is novel food, and this is important just that you know how it's categorized. And rigorous approval process is absolutely what I mentioned before, safety, food safety. And so we need to know that nothing without approval, and that is not possible to find anything on the table. And regulation are designed to protect, of course, consumers while supporting innovation and industry, because it's not so popular, but in the recent days, and I think for example, for 2 years, it will be absolutely normal, like everything what we have already today. Of course, culinary innovation, so master chefs and some Michelin restaurants. Already you can find some very interesting the menu with the insects included. And what is maybe important in this menu to highlight this novel food that is inside. So not to cover it or put it inside with something, not to hide, like Igor mentioned also before, like that people think that Commission wants to hide it in some way, but there is no reason, because it's open mind. So if someone wants to try, why not? And all possibilities, we need to still to see which possibilities this will bring. Showcasing, of course, compliance is here. Importance also not only safety, what is for me important, but also quality and consumer acceptance. Health diplomacy is always here to see this. How the countries respond for new novel technology and novel food, and of course to promote it if we see that this is the good. Of course, impact of regulation on innovation and trade within culinary sector is also important, and because if we see this that will become popular for 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, I don't know, maybe 10 years, then the trade it will change also all framework and the trade and everything, and of course maybe process will be something different. The future about things, I think that this is future for sure. Even maybe I'm not so optimistic in the way to see insects like this on my plate, but in the processed food and the parts of insects in some processed way, maybe it will be accepted like normal European diet. And for the future perspective, so I think that future is here. Like topic of ecological car. I think the industry potential changes in the EU policies to further support this culinary innovation and significance on the ongoing research. I think that we still need a lot of research and new. Maybe to repeat this research for 2 years to see is there any differences now when we have more information. And I think we should repeat definitely this research. And so what to say to conclude this my short presentation, because I think Igor already said everything. Insects definitely offer a unique solution to the challenges of modern food systems, combining this environmental sustainability with nutritional benefits. It will be good for our body, I think, to have insects, and we need to accept it in some new way, like everything. If we will not accept it voluntary, I think it will be like, put it like this, that we need in the end to accept it like something new. The synergy between culinary innovation, health diplomacy, regulatory frameworks is key to unlocking their potential. And it's, of course, most important to know who to ask if we want to ask something about control, about regulatory system. There is, of course, the agency for the food safety is responsible, and it's important to know that in every moment we can check what's going on the any of these novel food. So this is also my email if someone want to contact me afterwards, and of course, now we can start discussion. Thank you.